Thank you very much for the intro. I'll try to do an intro to venture capital. Like I spoke to some of you yesterday and during the office hours the 2 days before, and gave you the intro already, but this will be like a speed run of what we do in venture and what it actually is and stuff. So yeah, as Nemanja said, I focus on tech startups, was a developer before, did a bit of ML, but I'm not gonna compare myself to this level of ML at all. But like, just to begin, so what do we want to cover today? We want to figure out what venture capital even is, ideally disperse some of the stories that are going around of us funding weird stuff that goes to zero. Then we should figure out why somebody should raise venture capital, also figure out why somebody shouldn't raise venture capital. And then if we figured we are the ones who should raise venture capital, then we should know how to do it and ideally be able to demonstrate it on several case studies that we've prepared. So who is Credo? You met some of us already, but just quickly, we're a venture capital fund that started in 2010 with a mission to invest in Central and Eastern European founders anywhere in the world. So whatever they do, wherever they are, we believe that people from the region have great technical talents that will take them and be an advantage when they try to build global companies. So since 2010, we invested in roughly 70 companies. Some of them are listed in here. You might know some of them. So for example, the devs amongst you will probably know Apiary, which got acquired by Oracle, or BetterStack, or the AI people here will know 11 Labs, who do text-to-speech and AI dubbing. And I will talk about them later as well. Or UiPath, who ended up being a sponsor as well at this event and brought you ice cream. So that's one of our earliest investments from 2014-15. So the thesis that we had of Central and Eastern Europe becoming the new startup hub with tech companies is clearly working. This is not all our companies, obviously. We would be very rich if they were, but basically what we can see from this is that the ecosystem is booming. We roughly doubled, or 2.5x, the number of big outcomes between the years 2018 and 23. So definitely stuff is happening in the region. A lot of talent is coming back from the UK. A lot of people are getting educated somewhere else and then coming back, or getting educated here and building great companies from within the region. So definitely on the right track for Central and Eastern Europe. So this is us, 7 people on the investment team. 3 of us are here. You could see us yesterday or kind of during the entire EEML event. So that's enough for us. So now let's dive into what venture capital actually is, what it isn't, and how to raise it, how not to raise it. So as anything we'll talk about today, it's a solution to a problem, right? So imagine you're a founder and you have an idea. And that idea requires a lot of money up front and it's very risky. So for example, I want to build a self-landing rocket, right? Like, how am I going to do it? Like, I cannot go to a bank and ask for a loan because there is no reasonable interest I could get on that loan for that to be, kind of risk-reward safe for the bank. So basically what we do is we say, okay, we have companies that have several problems and need a lot of money up front. So for example, some companies need money up front to scale and become profitable. So for example, for Uber, if it didn't scale enough, it wouldn't be profitable and the entire model wouldn't work. So we need to cover that loss over the period in which we scale and build the company into a decent size so that the business model works. Oh, okay. Or, and these are not mutually exclusive, it can be both. Or we are trying to build self-landing rockets, so in that case, we need to cover all of the expenses that we might incur when building these rockets and all the time and all the people over that time that are trying to do so, and then at the end we might just like not land the rocket and we go to zero. So there's also another option, or 11 Labs, they tried to apply transformers to audio, which showed early signs of working, but it wasn't for sure certain that it will work, and again, the same example. Another thing, and that's common for most heavy enterprise software as a service companies, is that sometimes you know what you want to build. You might know it's possible, but it will take kind of a longer time. So within a year and a half, you should have the product. but it's an enterprise product, so it needs to be big by default. And then it's going to take you 18 months to sell that product because enterprise sales are long. So that's also another example where you might use some money up front to cover for all the costs and bridge that kind of time period of 2 to 3 years before you actually get any revenue and enter the market. And one thing that is overarching over all of them, and that's speed, right? What if, and we're going to talk about it later, usually startups emerge when a new opportunity in the market emerges. And in that case, usually more people at once kind of figure it out and more people start chasing that solution to a problem, right? And in that case, you want to run fast. You want to hire more people and you want to develop a lot of stuff at once, and for that you need money. And that is usually a common denominator for all of them. All of these companies needed to run fast to succeed, because there was usually more companies at once that tried to do it. Okay, so we took this assumption that we want to help these companies, right? We want to help companies that have crazy ideas and and need some money to sustain themselves for 2, 3, 5, 10 years, whatever, before they become profitable and they actually achieve something. But since those ideas are usually very crazy and that's the desired state, only 1 to 2% of them actually make it to that outcome. Most of them fail along the way, and that's fine. Obviously, that's the risk we're taking. If it was certain, then the bank would lend them the money, right? So how do we deal with that? Basically, we know that 2% make it. So this is kind of a sample venture capital portfolio structure. So 50% of our companies in our portfolio just make it to 0, or we never sell them, or they fail, or you know, they kind of soft land into nothing. Then we have multiple stages of success, but what's the point of this slide is that we're heavily reliant on those, what we call unicorn kind of companies, so that's $1 billion plus valued companies that kind of carry all the return of our portfolio. So we need those outlier outcomes to basically pay for all the losses that we incur when investing in the other companies that unfortunately don't make it. So if we were to wrap up venture capital in one sentence, basically goes as follows. I give you some money now, and then we're going to work hard, sometimes together, to bring more money back in the future, and the more money back needs to be a lot more money back, right? It's a game of kind of the exponential growth and the outlier kind of outcomes and huge companies being created. So is there an alternative? This sounds like, you know, it's the only solution to that problem. Obviously, there's companies that made it without venture capital funding. So these are companies that reached $1 billion in valuation without having raised venture capital along the way. Grammarly has an asterisk because it ended up raising venture capital, but after they reached the unicorn status, so kind of counts halfway. But all of the other ones, and there is more obviously, are managed to bootstrap everything from 0 to a unicorn or unicorn valuation. So it is possible, but if you're after building a billion or $1 trillion outcome, the numbers are definitely not in your favor. So none of the $1 trillion companies exist that haven't raised venture capital. So all of them did, like Amazon in '95, NVIDIA, and even earlier, I think. All of them did. All of them raised a lot of money along the way, and all of them needed it to scale and solve problems and raise multiple rounds of funding. For the $1 billion plus valued companies, 93% of European unicorns are venture funded. So only 7% of European unicorns are basically these guys. But what that means that the top of the market in terms of valuation is reserved for, it seems, venture capital backed companies. And that's completely fine. But we have to realize that there is a segment that is right below it. So there's companies worth $100 to $500 million or something like that. So that's still a huge outcome, where the distribution is way different, right? I couldn't find the numbers specifically, but there's more and more bootstrapped companies. So that's what we call companies that haven't raised venture capital. The lower you go in that valuation. And we need to realize that for a founder, there's two ways, right? There's the way of raising venture capital and somebody pushing you to do hyper growth and run fast. Or you can run your own business and push it to 20, 50, $100 million valuation, sell it, and be completely happy with your life and be rich and achieve kind of a lifestyle business thing. So it's important to realize this distinction, but bottom line here, if you want to run and you want to run super fast and achieve like those humongous outcomes, it seems like, unfortunately, you need to raise venture capital. So how much to raise and when? This is like a simple intro to the round sizes and all things related to that. So venture capital is raised in rounds. You can think about them as checkpoints. Some companies skip certain rounds if they are doing really well. Some companies kind of repeat rounds in form of bridges if they're not doing so well. But technically, we think in this framework of starting with pre-seed, that used to be seed. This is a kind of a new category in the past 7 years. So pre-seed is basically, you could think about a pre-seed company as two guys in a garage that had an idea, want to try it out. Maybe they're like out of university and they just need some money to sustain themselves for a year and like buy ramen noodles and, you know, live together or something and buy maybe a couple of GPUs. So that's your pre-seed. The idea here is that, yes, we have a risk. Usually it's technical risk. We don't know if this will work, like we're building something and it might be risky. But if it does, then we can prove it within 2 years that we're on the right track. And for that, we will hire 2 to 3 of our close friends that we have lined up to be our first founding employees or co-founders or whatever. And we'll just pay ourselves and build something. So after that, and some companies begin with pre-seed, some begin with seed, depends. Some begin with Series B, some begin with Series D. It's very individual, but the kind of idea around seed is that you've validated your product with customers, maybe you have early revenues, maybe you have design partners, you're talking to somebody, you have an MVP product that you can, you know, show customers, they can play with it, and we're getting the initial signs of market validation, so you know you're actually going somewhere and showing it to people. Series A, that's the first kind of, for pre-seed and seed, you're not going to be showing much numbers. We're going to talk about it later. For Series A, that's the first time the Excel spreadsheet with your revenue and margins and stuff kind of kicks in fully seriously. So Series A, you are going to be roughly at 1 million annual recurring revenue or somewhere along those lines, and you will have proven that your business model works and that you kind of see a way to making it at least 10 times bigger, and you've identified your market and so on. So it's kind of a scaling game already. And then Series B onwards, you can go to Series F, whatever letter you kind of think about, then it's quite a regular naming. That's more scaling, expanding into more geographies, and then it's very individual based on the company. So for example, Uber, right, is going to raise their Series E for, you know, expanding to Western Europe or something along those lines. But it's very individual to that company, and the reasons are different, and the round sizes are different as well. So for the pre-seed one, you should be looking at roughly 1 million euros to raise to sustain yourself, hire several people. Seed is 2 to 3 million in Europe, and Series A, and the later you go, the more individual it is based on the performance of the company, but Series A is then along the lines of 10 million, let's say, raising. Each round dilutes you 10 to 15%, so we technically create 10 to 15% more stock in the company. So you get diluted, you lose part of the company, and we get part of it, and then we hopefully build it to be bigger than what the dilution cost us. Okay, so how to raise it? So the first condition we talked about is like we need to be able to create that huge outcome that will, you know, the venture capitalists see as enough for them to return the entire fund and cover all the loss of those companies that didn't succeed. So the first condition is that it needs to be a $1 billion outcome. Like there is a math behind it, kind of on portfolio construction and everything. I'm not going to bother you with that, but like essentially what we need is a $1 billion outcome. So for that, we need to be able to achieve $100 million annual recurring revenue based on the public market multiples. But let's take that as an assumption. So we need to create a space for us to get $100 million yearly. So what we basically take, and this is a simple market sizing exercise, but I wanted to say, please don't look at McKinsey reports. If there's any market sizing by McKinsey, you know, think hard if you want to use it. What we prefer is this bottom-up approach rather than the top-down of you reading a report and saying, okay, this is a $2 trillion market because McKinsey said it and I'm going to take 1% of it and I'm going to be happy and fine. But you have no idea what that report's report contains and stuff. So what's preferable is doing this simple equation of saying there is this many users that can use my product, whatever it is. I'm gonna take X percentage of those users, so not everybody is gonna buy it. The fair assumption here is to go 1 to maximum 5% of all the users, because it's very hard to sell to the entire population. And then we multiply it by how much that person can pay within a year, like their yearly kind of value, right? It's very simple. Obviously, you can model this differently, but this is the napkin calculation we use most of the time. So let's do a hair salon exercise, right? There are 6,000 hair salons in the Czech Republic. We can expect them to pay $60 a month, roughly, so times 12 for the year. So we work backwards that we would need a 2,300% market penetration for us to achieve at least $100 million in annual recurring revenue, which is no good. So what can we do? We can say, okay, now we do it for the entire Europe, right? We're not going to concentrate only on Czech Republic. So that gives us more than 30% market penetration, which is still bad, because conquering the market of hair salons is very hard. You need to sell door to door, and achieving that for 30% of all hairdressers in Europe is very hard. So what if I said, okay, so now I sell them also a payment processor or something like that, and I kind of doubled their value, right? 15% still a lot, so probably not that great of an idea on the market size kind of level, or we need to say we're going to the US, which is usually the solution. So, kind of broadly thinking, right? Like what we're not going to do much about the market penetration. That's kind of a set in stone thing. We can try, we can sell more, but it's usually kind of there is a cap, right? What do we conquer? That's the first one is what we can influence probably the most, and that's saying, okay, we do hair salons, or we do hair salons and dog salons as well, or we expand our market. But then we need to think about the product, right? Like, how is that product the same? And the average customer kind of prices is also something we can think about and expand the product along the way. It doesn't have to be this expensive from the beginning, but we need to have the route to capturing that value from the customer. So very simple. So another kind of, so now we pass the VC backable bucket of saying, okay, we can be big, right? We have an idea, well, not the hair salon one, but let's say we have an idea that can go big, and there's enough space in the market that can accommodate that idea. So several questions to ask about any idea, and this is based on Peter Thiel's 7 questions. I highly recommend you read them. It's a great resource. It's probably the most information-dense resource when you want to start a startup, at least in my opinion. So I picked 4 of them as an example here. So the first one is called the engineering question. Is your solution 10x better than what exists in the market right now? And this one is really important. All of them are actually important, but this one is important and interesting, because usually incremental solutions don't succeed. If you make something 5% better, people are not going to be switching their existing solution to yours because it's 5% better, and you're not going to achieve that wave in the market. What you need to do is you need to come up with a revolutionary product or technology or whatever it is that is going to make people say, okay, wow, like this is the next generation thing, and I'm gonna go and switch, and this gets me motivated to buy quickly and spend my money on something. This one, very important as well. Why now? Why not yesterday? And why not tomorrow? So 2 parts of the question. The why not tomorrow is a bit hard. Are people ready for my solution? So let's say I try to create mobile games when only the first smartphones emerged, right? That could be an example of why not tomorrow, because people might not be ready to use your games because people are still getting used to the smartphone thing and kind of maybe a bad example, but sometimes the market is just not ready for your solution. This one is super hard to assess, so I'm not going to discuss it that much, but keep that in mind. Why not yesterday is an easier one to assess. So was your solution enabled by any technology? Was your solution, did it become relevant because there is like a regulatory change in the market? Is there like a new market segment appearing that calls for your solution? If not, then you should ask yourself a question: why hasn't anybody come up with it 2 years ago? And if yes, then you go study those companies that did it, and probably they didn't become big, or they did and you didn't know about them. And from there you take it. And from there you try to learn from what happened, why hasn't it happened? Oh God. Okay. Why hasn't it happened? And if it hasn't happened at all, then the chances are high that either you mysteriously discover the problem that nobody knew about, but usually for big problems, people know about them because it's their problems, and they would start solving them. So think about it deeply and try to justify why just now is the correct time to start building what you're building. Usually it's the tech one, like if it's enabled by new technology, it's an easy one. That's you get it out of the way, but if not, then think about it deeper, I think, for why now. Why you? Are you the best team or one of the best teams in the world that can build this? So this can be industry experience, this can be you having done the research and so on, a simple one. And can you make the company defensible? So for example, for AI, what we see as defensibility is primarily research. Have you discovered a new model that is proprietary to your company? Do you collect data with your application that make the model better, and therefore you acquire more users because your thing becomes better and you acquire more data, so that's the data flywheel? Or you have data from the get-go that is proprietary? Distribution, have you established any distribution channels that you can guard and make the product defensible? And building a brand, we're going to talk about it a bit later as well. So case studies. 11 Labs, basically when 11 Labs came to us 2 years ago, is it now? They basically came with an idea. Okay, we're going to go. Transformers came, right? We have this new technology that became relevant and people applied it to LLMs and text and so on. We're going to take it and we're going to say, okay, let's play with transformers and sound. And they wanted to build AI dubbing that basically would make any content available to anybody in the world and kind of create this Babelfish. So these are the answers to the questions we asked about previously. So was the solution 10x better? We saw early signs on the demos that they were. It was basically two people in a garage playing with their GPUs, so we couldn't really tell if it's actually 10x better, but we saw early signs that it would, because text-to-speech and AI dubbing before Transformers was very bad and nobody actually used it. So if it happened and if it was successful, then it would be 10x better. And that's the bet we were making, right? Why now? Obviously, Transformers, new architecture. The technical why now is the easiest, as I said, so this was clearly a technical why now. Why you, Piotr and Matěj, the co-founders. Piotr did research in audio models at Cambridge and Oxford. Matěj was the guy who knew how to scale products from Palantir and take it to the market, so it was an ideal combo for us. And can this company be defensible? We'll see. But at that time, we said, like, hopefully, so that's why it's in orange, because the LLM race was on, and everybody could any day pivot into audio, and we just didn't know. But we were happy to take the bet. And it's just to illustrate, like, you don't have to answer yes or positively to all of them. It's just being aware of those risks and knowing how to mitigate them along the way, and just purely being aware of them. Another case study. This is a company, it's called Lead. So it's from Lead Speak. When they came to us, again, like 2 years ago or something, 1.5 years ago, what they said was like, okay, we got LLMs, they can speak. We got diffusion models, they can create images. So how about we combine it and create synthetic humans or AI entities that will just like live by themselves. So if you've seen the paper that tried to do Sims with LLMs, so basically that's what they tried to do, but make those people connected to social media and make them post and interact with the users and just, it's kind of dystopian, but that's what they tried to do and try to do still. They aren't dead yet. So how did we look at this idea, right? Was the solution 10x better? Here it's quite easy because there was no solution like this before. So it was kind of 10x better than nothing. So definitely something that was enabled by new technology again. For the why now, why not yesterday was easy, right? We couldn't have done it at all yesterday. Easy answer. But why not tomorrow is a bit harder here. And we had to think about, okay, so if we want AI entities on social media, will people respond to them in a way, in a positive way or in a negative way, or will they care? Will they see them as normal influencers, human influencers, or not? How will people receive them? Are they ready for it? And that was the risk we kind of acknowledged, and we're like, okay, it's uncertain, but we're definitely happy to try that, and if it works, it's exciting. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and that's fine. So we identified this, and we're happy to back them anyway. Why them? Basically, oh, sorry for that. Basically, the founder was a second-time founder. Previously, he founded Facemoji, which ended up being acquired by Google, so that's the same as Facemoji for iOS, that kind of avatar thing. So it was kind of relevant. It's definitely the same space of generating images and humans. And can you make the company defensible? Frankly, we don't know. It's reliant on the social media platforms, and it's just from there it wasn't clear whether it would become defensible as purely defensible. Most likely it would become defensible on the brand, but we took it as an unknown, and that's also completely fine. You know, sometimes you just don't know, and that's the business we're in. We don't know. If we knew it, we wouldn't be in this business, and the business would solve itself. So things to keep in mind, and this is something that, you know, it's an overarching thing. It's something we called product market fit. It's a puzzle, right? It's like you have the market that goes around, and you have the product that you're trying to fit into that market. So how we think about it, and we see it with people who do research and stuff, that they often think about the product, only about the product, and like the product living in an isolated universe, right? So what I mean by that is, imagine I developed an AI for screening of MRI scans or something like that. And I developed the AI, and it's really good, and you know, I know it's way better than humans, and it detects more of whatever disease than humans more accurately. So, okay, so that's amazing, but then we need to do the second step of saying, okay, how do I capitalize on that, and how do I get it to the market, and how do I get it to the user? And for example, for medical stuff, this is usually very, very complicated. So imagine all of those MRI scanners, they live somewhere, they're probably not connected to the internet, and if they are, they don't have an API, and if they do, then the API is proprietary to that brand, and they don't let you just like access it and integrate with it. Then okay, so then even if you manage to, we've seen companies that actually had to go around this by letting the machine print the scan on a paper and then scanning it with a camera. That was the easiest way. So even if you manage it, then you need to sell to hospitals, then you need to, you know, kind of contract insurance, and then you need to go and like go country by country because there's different insurance groups in different countries, and all of that complexity kicks in, and all of a sudden the barrier for you to get your amazing thing into the market that you know it works and it's amazing and it's going to save lives becomes so much harder. It's sad. Sometimes products become way worse than they could be just because the market is so bad. Like, for example, these things when you need to connect it with a camera and something, right? It's not the ideal solution. Obviously, there's better solutions, and this holds back a lot of innovation. But yeah, you need to think about it, and there's easier industries, there's harder industries, but keep that in mind. How to get it to the end customer, how to bring value with your thing, and how to make the users actually use it and ideally pay for it, right? So yeah, just to wrap up, it all seems complicated, but a few points. Raise venture capital only if you need it and if you want it and if you want to grow fast. Otherwise, it's gonna, you know, stab you in the back, kind of, you know, because you're gonna be pushed into doing something you don't want to do. If you want to run your lifestyle business, then I wouldn't advise to raise venture capital, because then you're misaligned with your VC, and you know, you both want something else, and that's never good. But if you do raise venture capital, it's great, and it's definitely enabled a lot of innovation that we wouldn't have had otherwise. It's okay to bootstrap. There is no shame in it. A lot of the times when VCs reject you, they should tell you that it's fine. It's just not a business for them, but it can be a great business. It can be an amazing business. It can be a business that takes 7 hours a week to maintain and is printing you $500K a month, and then you're good to go to live anywhere in the world and, you know, have a super nice life. Keep defensibility in mind and learn from the mistakes of others. That's the why now kind of question. That's, you know, you look in the past and say, why hasn't it worked? You know, maybe you'll see something, maybe you will see a scalability issue, maybe you will see something else, or maybe you will just like conclude that you're better and you can do it and learn from those mistakes and see all the obvious ones and give it another try and grow big. And most importantly, find a VC that you like. When raising capital, this is probably the most important. Like, it's going to be a long-lasting relationship. Ideally, you would work together. Definitely don't see your VCs as your enemies. That's really bad because you're after the same goal. So try to find somebody that you like, you resonate with, and ideally somebody that understands you and you would like to sit in a room for the next, at least, like, you switch your VCs, but at least for your next 4 or 5 years, kind of, and find that person nice to you, and being able to align with them is also important. So yeah, happy to talk to any of you. This is a Calendly link, so feel free to book your slots with me even now, or write me over LinkedIn or email. Happy to chat at any point, even if you just have ideas, even if you just want to discuss anything or something was unclear from this presentation, which is like very possible. It was a speed run, but you know, happy to talk at any point. Feel free to reach out with anything, and we're here. So thank you.